Welcome to Warehouse Automation Matters. I'm your host, Mary Hart, and I'm here with Amit Levy, EVP of Sales and Strategy at Made4Net, to discuss what warehouse managers should look for in a WMS beyond features and functionality. Welcome to the show, Amit.
Mary, thanks for having me.
When a warehouse manager realizes their current system isn't cutting it, what are usually the first red flags they notice?
Yeah, great question. So I would start with inventory accuracy, having a difference between the physical and the system where it pertains to the inventory, right? So this is kind of the backbone for every WMS. If the inventory is inaccurate, then we can't even go on. Then I'd look into order fulfillment delays. Do you have a lot of orders that take time in terms of picking and packing and shipping? And then customers that complain about your level of deliveries or accuracy around deliveries. And then I would look into labor efficiency or inefficiency. How much time are your workers spending time in walking, searching? And it's really most of the time it's around walking, just spending time of travel within the warehouse. So these are kind of the first and probably the top three that I would be looking at.
Thank you. So, in your experience, Amit, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that warehouse managers have when they start looking for a new WMS?
Yeah, so the first one is people or warehouse managers, when they start looking for a WMS, they think that all WMS platforms are basically the same. That's really not the case. There's so many systems out there, and each system has its own strengths and weaknesses, and some are more focused on small operations, other designed to handle complexity, multi-sites environments, and so on and so forth, automation, robotics, integration. So not every WMS is the same. The other misconception is that warehouse managers think that if they bought a system, they can fix it all out of the box. That's really not the case, because as good as the WMS can be, it's depending on processes. So the processes, if it's not working, if you don't have the SOPs in place, the WMS is not going to fix it. It needs to work based on an organized environment. The third and last that I mentioned today is thinking that, if I'm the warehouse manager, I can do it all on my own and not involve IT. And that's really not the case as well. You need to have a buy-in from your IT and an involvement in the project, in the implementation, in addition to your own team. IT is super important for an implementation of a WMS because there needs to be integration. There needs to be the IT side of it. You need to have not only operation alignment, but also IT and organizational alignment.
There are a lot of features out there: labor management, inventory accuracy, real time tracking. But from a practical standpoint, what should warehouse managers prioritize first when evaluating systems?
Yeah, I think that the number point that pertains to this topic is inventory accuracy. Again, if the WMS can't maintain true inventory, view of inventory and inventory levels, everything else breaks. You need to make sure that your inventory is accurate, not only from a quantity perspective, but also from a location perspective. Inventory attributes, depending on the industry, if it's slot management or expiration date or serial numbers. Look for a system that provides and supports real-time processes. Otherwise, if you don't have all that in place, you're going to have too many gaps. So that's the first point. The second thing is scalability and flexibility. Is your system going to work in a changing environment? You're having growth in volumes, more SKUs, more warehouses. You want to launch different type of businesses, if it's B2C or distributors to retailers. The flexibility around integration with automation. These are all things that you really need to make sure are there, in addition to the basics of labor management and so on and so forth. The last piece is usability. You could have a great, powerful system. If the users can't work with it, it's not going to work. They're going to push back on that. And you want to make a system that has an intuitive UI that supports mobile devices, easy to use, not too many clicks, friendly for the user, and takes little time to train, just to make it more easier for, again, the users that work with this system.
Every warehouse is different. How can operation leaders tell whether a WMS is truly flexible enough to adapt to their workflows and not just a generic fulfillment model?
The first thing here is, how flexible the system is in maintaining and managing the ability or allowing the users to configure workflows. So every change that you want to put in your warehouse, you don't want to go back to your vendor and ask them to put in a new code, right? Or have a programmer write new code to support that. So, if you have a system that supports rule-based engine for put away, picking, replenishment, and so on, configure our workflows based on different type of constraints, people, robots, machines, and so on. That's the number one goal. And then when you look at your operation itself, how flexible is the system in supporting multiple fulfillment methods or strategies, right? And this could also be not either or, but in parallel. So you're talking about B2B, DC, D2C, right? So you want to ship different type of products in different type of forms. You want to have customer specific logic. So when you ship to one customer, it uses one type of workflows. When you ship to a different customer, it uses a different type of workflows. And then last but not least, special packaging methods. So you want your system to be able to support different type of packaging and packing processes, again, based on the specific vertical, specific shipping methods that you use.
One theme on your website is speed to value. How should managers think about implementation time and ROI when comparing platforms?
Yeah, I'll break it into two. One is go live speed, how fast it is to put the system in place and to get it up and running. The typical standard time it takes a warehouse to put in a new WMS is usually around 6 to 8 months. We can do this faster because of our technology, because of our deployment tools, and we're able to get it faster in the works, including the integration, implementation, onboarding of the users. That's first half of the story. The second half of the story is what we would call the speed to pivot, the speed to pivot, right? So being able to quickly pivot and adjust to the customer's ever-changing business process and requirements that drive their organization and their business, right? Being able to change workflows, being able to change configuration of the system to really quickly adapt to what the customer wants to achieve.
Many warehouses are now running a mix of manual and automated systems. What role should WMS play in bridging that gap, especially as robotics and automation continue to evolve?
Sure. I think this is a very critical question to any modern warehouse that may shift towards a hybrid environment of both manual and automation, which you can see happens quite often in today's reality. So the first thing, I think that the WMS acts as a control tower. It should sit at the core, orchestrating between people and machines. And by machines, it could be robots, it could be carousels, any type of automated system that augments the resources in the warehouse. The second thing is provide real-time optimization, being able to take the tasks that we have in the warehouse and the orders that we need to fulfill and all the deliverables from a fulfillment center or shipping process, assign those to different type of resources, whether it's human, robots, again, any type of automation that we have in the warehouse, reroute those tasks and optimize them between the different resources. And then the last piece is visibility. Provide a single point of visibility into the operation, regardless of which systems we have in place. That is very much a WMS goal and role in managing those different type of automation and human, so manual and automated systems.
You mentioned visibility. How important is real time data visibility in today's environment, and what kinds of operational decisions does that enable that weren't possible before?
Yeah, real-time data visibility, it's not a nice to have anymore. It's a must. And it's a must because you can't run a real-time operation without having that visibility. So the first thing I would provide as an example here is dynamic labor allocation. Being able to see where the bottlenecks are and shift resources in real time instead of guessing based on yesterday's metrics, right? So you want to make those changes in real time based on what happens now. Another example is being able to have planning of your resources and having an intelligent planning engine to execute. You're looking at all your orders that you have. You want to be able to plan ahead, but also adjust as you go. So these are all things that, from a visibility perspective, if you use a strong engine, you're going to have a much simpler life. Happy customers. At the end of the day, it all comes down to our ability to fulfill and provide the SLA to our customers.
Growing brands often face a good problem in the form of rapid expansion. What does scalability really mean in the context of a WMS, and what's at stake if it's not built in from the beginning?
Yes, scalability in the WMS world means ability to support growth in various areas. I'll just point out three. One is handling more business volumes, orders, shipment, transactions, users, right? You want to be able to support more volume, more growth of the organization. The second point is the ability to adapt to new business expenditures that the organization may bring into the operation. If it's new fulfillment channel, new items, new processes. If you have a very firm and non-flexible solution, it would be very challenging to put those new businesses and new opportunities to expand your business into a system. The last point here on growth is physical expansion. You start with with one warehouse, you grow into more facilities. Could be domestically and within the same campus, or it could be in a different state, or it could be in a different country. You want your system to be able to support your physical growth and physical expansion beyond your initial stand.
Can you share an example where a warehouse scaled operations or added automation and the WMS either enabled that growth or became a bottleneck?
Yeah, sure. We had a customer that does fulfillment of design products. So, for example, tiles, carpets, and so on. They use AMRs and VLMs, vertical lift machines, to support their growth and expansion. They were able to use that technology to be able to ship to end customers in less than 24 hours. Another example is a customer in the 3PL space that were all manual. They started implementing a mix of AGVs and AMRs and different type of processes to support different type of processes in the warehouse. They were able to use that strategy in order to expand, grow into more facilities, and provide better service to their customer, grow their customer base, again based on a 3PL environment. More customers, more business.
Who should be at the table when selecting a WMS? Is this an IT led decision, or should warehouse managers and operations leaders take the lead?
It's a joint effort. It can't be either or, because the warehouse manager is actually the customer. They are the ones that are using the system. They need to have a very strong voice in what solution they would use, because that's, they're going to be the users. But you can't leave IT aside, because there's so many factors that IT controls are essential for the success of the implementation.
As someone who's deep in this space, what innovations or changes are coming down the pipeline for WMS technology that warehouse managers should be watching?
Yeah, like everything in our world today, a lot of it is machine learning and AI, right? So we want to see that the vendor has an understanding of where the world is going and how do you implement those technologies and allow the warehouse to do a better job in fulfilling the orders. I expect more automation. I expect collaboration, or stronger collaboration, between warehouse workers and automation. I expect more AI, more IoT in the warehouse, if it's in the form of sensor, computer image processing, things that will bring more value to the regular standard operation of a warehouse using a WMS. Just take it to the next level.
One last question. For a warehouse manager who's just starting the process of evaluating systems, what's one action they should take this week to move forward with clarity?
The most important thing is really understand and map your current warehouse processes and define the most costly inefficiencies. You need to do that before you even start looking at vendors and looking at demos and so on and so forth. Frame the right questions, understand where your pain points are. Then you'll be able to have a more intelligent conversation with your WMS vendors. You'll have a better chance of selecting the right partner for you, because you'll be able to do a better match between what your challenges are, what your processes are, to whatever those vendors show you as part of the selection process. Having a selection team, a really strong selection team that, again, includes IT and operation and an internal buy-in from management is also very important and is key to making sure that you have a successful product.
Thanks again to Amit for joining the podcast. This was a great episode. And thank you, as always, to our listeners. We're here to help you move what matters in your warehouse with unmatched flexibility and unlimited throughput.